let's talk about my favorite build in Throne and Liberty, and that's my Battle Mage bossing build. This thing is absolutely disgusting. Check this out. Get him out of here, baby. Too simply dimply. So let's talk about the principle of this build and how to utilize it effectively. Ultimately, there's two ways you're doing serious damage with this build, and you're gonna have daggers out for the most part on this build, especially if the boss is stationary. Your job with this build is to build up thunderclouds on the boss and then pop them, all while you're doing constant burn damage and keeping burn stacks at a max if possible. So instead of going through the order of the skills here, I'm gonna talk through how I use the skills to maintain uptime on how much damage and elemental damage I can do to the boss at a given time. So here we go. First, you want to use lightning infusion. This stacks thunderclouds on a boss, and it also applies to your multi-hit skills. So you're going to use a lot of multi-hit skills with this build right after using that buff on your weapons. So for example, I may initiate a fight with Hellfire Rain, in which I'm speccing in multi-hit on Hellfire, which is one of our strongest abilities. And then as they're raining down, I apply lightning infusion to my weapon, all those stack thunderclouds on a boss. And then I follow up with something like Fireball Barrage, which is another Fireball Rain on the boss. And then Ice Spear Bombardment, which should at that point ultimately be close to stacking max stacks of thunderclouds on a boss, which is 20. And then I want to pop those with the daggers. And the order of the dagger damage is going to be Ankle Strike, followed by Cleaving Moonlight. And if you're not at 20 stacks yet, you Cleaving Moonlight once, and then in between the second usage of it, you'll have attack speed for your daggers to apply more stacks while you have your lightning infusion on. And then you're going to finish up by popping the 20 stacks with thunderclouds. When you do that, when you pop it, it's going to do severe damage, but it's also going to reduce the cooldown so you can rinse and repeat as fast as possible. You may not see insanely high damage numbers, but while they're constantly burning and you're doing this, and how fast you're doing this, you are doing so much DPS. And it really leads into that battle mage playstyle. On top of that rotation of skills, you really just have these hard-hitting abilities that apply burn. So you're going to initiate with Focus Fire. Focus Fire does a ton of damage, and it applies stacks of DOT. Your job is to try to get those stacks to 10 because the max you can get is 10. And so in order to do that, you're going to initiate with Focused, and then you're going to go over to Inferno, which is going to add an additional 3 stacks every single usage, and you can potentially use it twice. So the spec that we have for the skill Specializations that we'll talk about in a bit allows you 50% of the time to use it twice. So after they're starting their burn, you're going to use it once and then use it again. And when they're at those max stacks, it actually does more damage with Inferno Wave. So if you're able to maintain it with, you know, fast cooldowns, if you build enough cooldown reduction, you can actually utilize these and do a ton of damage with these as well. And outside of that, after the burning rotation, you're going to be able to use Judgment Lightning, where if they're at max stacks, every single stack of burn on them gives you a chance of reusing the skill cooldown again, so you're able to use it twice. And it's a super fast instant cast ability, and it just does a ton of damage. So it's really fast, really good for maintaining damage. So like I said, you want to focus on the thundercloud aspect of things and the fire burn aspect of things, and doing those in the right order and using the cooldowns effectively, trying to make sure that you're using infusion before you hit the multi-hit abilities, and that you're maintaining burn whenever possible, followed by the lightning. You are doing insane amounts of damage. The buff side of things, you're going to have high focus. This is going to reduce your cooldowns, give you movement speed, and we spec it to give us more damage. And then we have Inner Peace, which is just a mana gain at any time that we need it. The specializations I'll be relatively quick on because you can just look here for reference, but you should trust me on these. Focus Fire, you want to add, it changes the ability of the Serial Fire, and you're going to be able to move while using it. It's just going to stack those burns. Inferno Wave is just going to have that 50% chance of casting twice. You're going to be able to reduce its cooldown and apply the additional burning stacks. Fireball Barrage is just going to be a multi-hit ability that's just pretty good on damage as well, but it just is really utilized to stack more thunderclouds. And Hellfire Rain is your big damage, almost ultimate ability that we do spec into multi-hit as well here, because if you initiate a fight with that, the bosses are so big you don't really miss them, so it hits them with every single rain of the Hellfire, which just does a ton of damage. High focus, we're going to increase damage. That's that buff we talked about. And on Ice Spear Bombardment, and on Ice Spear, we're going to add Bombardment for multi-hit and straight up damage because it's just a really good damaging ability. For the daggers, we'll talk about Cleaving Moonlight is in that rotation. It's just your bread and butter dagger ability. It does good damage. It's fast. It moves you towards the boss. And it's just really, really strong. It also will increase your attack speed in between usages of it. So if you need to stack more thunderclouds, you do that in between usages of cleaving. Lightning Infusion is initially going to actually be Inject Venom. We're going to change it to Lightning Infusion and reduce its cooldown just so we can stack Thunderclouds as much as possible. Thundercloud here is the way we pop the damage. You're going to want to change the ability of Brutal Incision to Thunder and reduce its cooldown, so you constantly have it off cooldown. It's a very short window are very short cooldown. Ankle strike is what you're going to initiate every single dagger play with because it has offhand activation, but it's my face is covering that right now, but that's the only buff you're going to pick on that. As for the passives, pretty simple. A lot of the time it's going to be consistent almost across all builds. The critical buffs are what you want to apply first, or what you want to buff up first. So you can see here Assassin Instinct and Wrathful Edge are both getting juice. That's your crit damage and crit chance. We have Destructive Fang, which is going to reduce the target's defenses while they have something like Thunderclouds on them. This is going to Ascensionism is going to give us more damage when we're stationary, and a lot of these big bosses don't really move, so you stay behind them with daggers and you unload as much as possible with your attack speed of the daggers. Mana Amp is going to increase our mana and health. Flame Condensation is going to increase our burn. Forbidden Sanctuary is just straight up skill damage. And Murderous Energy is going to prolong the duration of Thundercloud so we can get to 20 stacks and then pop them without having to worry about doing it too fast. For stat points, I wouldn't stress over this too much because you can respec them freely, and it really depends on what kind of stats you have on gear. I talk about them a bit in the PvE video, but moral of the story is after you get to 20, from 30 on, every 10 points is going to add an additional buff to your class, like a node. For example, here at Dex 40, I just get 15% increased damage. At Wisdom here, I increase max mana at 30. And then I mess with Strength and Perception. If you're struggling and getting knocked a lot, you're going to... If you're struggling, you may want to up your Strength just to get some more health. Or if you're missing a lot, you may want to up your Perception. It's all kind of depending on what you can do in the given situation. You want to get the Liquarius Daggers, which is the final dungeon that you can do, just because they are discussing it adds base damage when you use a movement ability, which is what your spin does just inherently on your dagger. And then you want to get the Talus Staff, which is the rock staff, because every time you get CC'd, you go into an ice cocoon to keep you safe. It's just a really strong staff across the board. So that's going to do it for the bossing build. This is one of my favorite builds in all of the game, and I absolutely love playing this class. The PvP build would be next if you guys are interested, leaving a comment below. If you like this content in general, commenting, subscribing, liking, following, coming over to my live and hanging out would mean the absolute world to me. I've been playing a ton of this game, and especially here on release. So come on over, drop in, and say what's up, and I will catch you guys in the next one.